Art of Botany students. I'm standing here in front of the instructional wing of the Harker Lab, and I just wanted to say a few words about the history and also the design of this building. So the Harker Lab was built in between, I would say, the years 2012 and 2013. And it was designed by a firm in Baltimore called Ayers St. Gross. And what I think is really unique about this building is not only the design, which you can see behind me is rather modern building, which we'll talk about later, the materials and all of those different elements, and how it also contrasts to the landscape design, but also the care which was taken in designing a building not only that has a lot of different sustainable features, like proper air handling, cooling techniques that use less energy efficient windows, and they actually adhere to a certain federal or national standard for sustainable building design. But even though I really like the instructional wing of this building, I actually worked here for almost 4 years teaching integrated biology and chemistry. But I think really my favorite part of the building is the landscape, which you might expect, right, as a plant person. But it really is amazing, I think, the way that the designers really work together, the architects, I should say, work together with the landscape designers to create a design in the outdoor space that seamlessly complemented and also upheld the standards of sustainability into the outdoor space. And so, as far as I know, you don't often see that type of connection between the architects and people who design the building with the people that design the landscape outside the building. And so the major thought that goes with that is that this isn't just a case of plants being chosen for the outdoor design, for the outdoor landscape to be beautiful and attractive and also suited to the climate, but also really play a role in maintaining and carrying out the vision of this space to be really a showcase towards the center of the UD campus for sustainable design and sustainable practices. So as before, I would like to just show you where the Harker Lab is located on the UD campus. And so here is East Main Street. That's 108 right there, where a lot of the classes in the English Language Institute take place. And here we are at the Harker Lab. Okay, so if you're here on the UD campus. And if you want to check out the ICE lab, or what it's now called the Harker Lab, you would just simply walk down Academy Street and arrive here at the Harker Lab. You can see on the map that the Harker Lab is divided into two different sections: the instructional wing and the research wing, which both have quite an array of amazing equipment and facilities. But unfortunately, we won't be able to see those today. But what we will do is look at the different features present in the grounds. So just to give you an idea of how this large building is divided, the Harker Lab is made up of two major wings: the Bob and Jane Gore Research Laboratories over on this side. Okay, there's the entrance right there. And the DuPont Science Learning Laboratories, which is this wing over here. It extends quite a ways, as you can see. The focus of this trip around the Harker Lab today will, of course, be different sustainable design features, mainly rain gardens, a bioretention area, we'll sort of pan towards the green roof because it's not visible from outside the building. And we'll also see how all of these are connected in this innovative and really comprehensive sustainable design. So here we are walking through the bridge that connects both wings of the Harker Lab. You're surrounded by green foliage that, as you can see, are all different textures and shades of green. There are lots of places to sit, enjoy, study, maybe even reflect upon the view. And again, you can see how perhaps the greenery that's included here also softens the glass and steel focused design of these modern buildings. one thing that you're not able to see right at this moment is the green roof, which is at the top of this particular part of Harker Lab. So although I cannot show you that, I can show you how all of these things are connected with one another. Alright, so here you see in the background two spouts that appear to be coming out of the external wall. Water is dripping from there, and what this actually is an outlet of the water that is collected on the green roof. And the green roof has a collection of plants that are called succulents, which can hold a lot of water in their leaves, and any excess water is drained through these pipes that end in this area. Another thing I'd like to note is the plants that are present here. This is actually one of my favorite parts of this landscape design. The reason is normally landscape architects focus on flowering plants. However, these are neither flowering or seed plants. These are a plant called EQUISETUM or horsetail, and they simply have spores, like, for example, a fern. So they're very ancient plants. They grow usually in rocky areas like this, so this is perfect with the materials that have been selected here. And they also help filter the water and are tolerant of excess water that drains through here. And the last thing I'd like to note about this space is there is actually a physical drain here, so that any excess water can go underneath through pipes in the earth and towards the bioretention area. So there's an internal structure and an external component of this design. And so now I'd like you to see how they're connected. So up there is the green roof. Down here are the external pipes that drain into this area. Here are the EQUISETUM plants that filter this area. And as I've mentioned before, one of the common themes here is this contrast of patterns and shapes in the stonework of this large area here. And so here you have these large pavers. Here you have the circular so-called river stones. And then here you have these long pieces, long, flat, slightly reliefed or slightly indented stonework that extends in this direction. And in fact, although this offers a really interesting visual contrast, it's actually the means by which the water can travel from this outdoor patio towards the bioretention area. And so that's one thing I really like about this particular design is how well connected it is. That the water that ends up here can actually travel along this stonework from that area and initially from the green roof up there. And so it shows a really unique design and interconnectedness that many people have not seen or even considered before. And so that's why I like to think this area is quite unique and special. So one thing I'd like to note as we step back from the outdoor design, the landscape design of the Harker Lab, is that there's both an above ground component, which of course you can see here, and also an underground component, which has helped this space extend beyond merely the borders of the building. What I mean by that is that over here we have a small rain garden, also populated with native shrubs and grasses. Here we have some holly varieties here, and also what looks to be a magnolia tree right there. And that this rain garden was created to drain any runoff and have the plants filter any pollutants or any other materials through their roots before it once again enters the ground. And so that's one of the components here that's very important, not only in the design, but also the functionality of this space. The combination of bioretention areas and rain gardens, which help to direct and filter the rainwater and runoff from the sidewalks, in some cases the roadways, as we saw in the UD Botanic Garden, and also the lawns, the grass that's planted surrounding each building. Because remember, the grasses, as you can see, there are no weeds in the grass. It's all very uniform. You might also call it a monoculture, which is where one species is maintained. So these areas almost definitely have some type of herbicide and maybe pesticides applied to them. I'm speaking about the lawn here. So if that's the case, if it rains, it's very helpful if we have these rain gardens and bioretention areas to first filter those materials before they go into the storm drain and ultimately the water system. Okay, so you might be wondering, what is the difference between a bioretention area, like this one, and a rain garden? And I think that's a really good question. At face value, you can imagine they're quite similar. They both are designed in a way to direct and filter water before going into the storm drains incorporated in the infrastructure of the building, and then ultimately into the water system. But there is at least one major difference. Whereas a rain garden is designed with certain plants, also with the idea, of course, of it looking beautiful and being attractive to the design. The plants in there are simply chosen whether they are water tolerant or not, in addition to being attractive. Okay, and then also perhaps native species are chosen for another aspect of the design, which is sustainability, attracting native species of insects and birds, and also just being friendly to the local ecosystem. But with a rain garden, that's about it. Those plants are chosen for their water tolerance, for their attractiveness, and for their ability to be planted and cared for at whatever site is chosen. However, a bioretention area, you have those same things in play, but the requirements are a little bit more stringent. So not only should there be the practical consideration of the plants being water tolerant, that the root systems are water tolerant, but the fact that everything is working together, the plants, the soil, even the microbes living in the soil, in order to help filter and cleanse any water that drains through that particular area. So in short, the bioretention area is held to specific standards, higher standards in terms of sustainable design. So a landscape designer would actually have to adhere to those standards and incorporate each of those things correctly so that before they actually call an area a bioretention area. I hope that clarification has helped a little bit. This view is approaching the Harker Lab from the east side of the building. And I just wanted to note some features that show the high environmental standards with which the building and surrounding grounds have been designed. So I'd just like to point out the rain garden over there. And I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a loud sound coming from the top of the buildings. And those are the air scrubbers that connect to the fume hoods in the research wing of this building, so that any fumes or vapors from chemicals are directed outwards, away from people working in the building, but then the air is scrubbed before entering the surrounding atmosphere. Here I am again on the east side of the Harker Ice Lab building. And I just wanted to show you some of the features of this little rain garden here. Okay. So there have been some stones put here as part of the design, but also to direct the water from the sidewalk where I'm standing downwards, so that it can drain through this soil. And there are a number of different species that have been planted here as part of this design, which are mostly native species and also, of course, water-tolerant species. So let me just pan through here for a second. This concludes my tour of the Harker Lab. I hope that you have enjoyed it and that the tour of this outdoor space has given you some opportunity to reflect on the fact that such types of design, such types of landscape design can actually be implemented in academic, so instructional, and research buildings in the central part of campus. So for the features, the sustainable features that you saw at the UD Botanic Gardens, you would kind of expect to see them there, right? That there would be a lot of thought given into the landscape design, the functionality of the space, because that's what's taught at that part of campus. And that's the focus of the students and the instructors, the educators, in that part of campus. But here, it's a little bit different. All different types of courses are taught in the instructional wing, and all different types of research happen in the research wing of this building, including things like delving into nanotechnology and things like that. But the purpose of this and the point of this is that you can see that you really do have sustainable practices being implemented in a central part of campus in a very important academic building to provide a great showcase and example of how these practices and principles can be upheld in a university and academic setting. So thank you for visiting and walking with me on this tour. I hope that soon you'll be able to visit this beautiful, inviting, functional, and sustainable space.